Every piece of glass that you see in the house, 12 foot high and 5 feet wide.
Everything in this build is so freaking expensive. This is, I think, one of the craziest home design builds I've ever seen. Yeah, I'm gonna pause the music. I love Architectural Digest. They have the craziest shit.
The interior design in this house, it's not my preferred style. It is my style. It's my vocabulary, my shapes, and also that's informed by the bones that Ken gave me. It's a reaction to the shapes that he laid down. Over the years, it's still changing and growing. It is almost like a living object.
This is insane. I'm like trying to think about how they would have done construction drawings for this, and I'm like, wouldn't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. So many curves, it's so organic. It is like it's straight out of Dune, you're right.
My name's John Buckern. I'm the interior designer and fabricator on the Kellogg Doolittle project. It was built for Bev and Jay Doolittle, and the architect is Kendrick Baines Kellogg. I would describe Ken Kellogg
This
as...
looks like a museum. This doesn't look like a house. This looks like this should be like an exhibit that you walk through.
This really underestimated genius. The new owner, Scott Leonard, and I are continuing with basically the same relationship where you don't get carte blanche, but it's the best next thing to it.
The detailing in this house is insane. Like, I know they say the house looks like a fossil. It literally looks like it should be a museum for dinosaurs. It's really, really pretty, but I can't help but wonder, what would it feel like living there? Like, it feels like a public building to me. It doesn't feel like a residence at all. Yeah, you're right. It does feel very futuristic.
I just like the repetition in jazz, but
so
the
much
whole
detail.
thing forms another bigger picture. So it's what I try to do with my shapes.
Well, and okay, from a constructability perspective, was this all prefab? Did they manufacture these like concrete components and then bring them onto the build site and then kind of interlock them all to create the build? I'd imagine that's how they would have had to do it, right? Unless it was some kind of like sculptural plaster, but this looks like concrete to me. I keep thinking the floor is sand.
There's close to 1,000 panes of glass up there. Another challenging thing on this project is everything is coming up a golf cart path. Every piece of glass that you see in the house, some of them are 10 foot, 12 foot high, and 5 feet wide and weigh 600 pounds. Just getting things physically moved around here is really difficult.
I couldn't imagine what the budget of this house was. I bet you we can look it up after.
I lived in Carrara, Italy, where this marble's from, and I had a thin piece of it leaned up against a window, and I saw the light passing through it, and it reminded me of alabaster, which they used to make lampshades out of.
Wow.
The shape is inspired by the early Sputnik satellites that the Russians put into orbit. If you see these things in the dark building, looks like they're floating like stars in the sky.
Who is this homeowner?
Because
Dream contractor, also vivid vision. Absolutely, absolutely. I feel like the design presentation for this project would have been really fascinating to watch. I'm sure they've done more film work about this specific home. I would have to say, I think this is probably one of the most intricately designed builds we've reacted to on this channel. This is insane to me. It's stunning. It's just so complicated. I want to see floor plans.
Working on this house well into the evening, I knew how dark it was. When it came time to make the structure here, I decided to turn it into a lighting fixture that could light up the whole house. It was...
Is this a walkway? Is this a level above?
Kind of inspired by a skeleton that's been bleached out of the sea urchin. It's got that kind of shape, and it's got the little ridges on it. I always thought those were kind of pretty.
Oh, it kind of reminds me of mushroom gills.
The frosted glass reads as kind of a mint green to me, and there's a lot of plants out in the desert that have that same silvery green tone.
Everything in this build is so freaking expensive. This is blowing my mind. I have no idea how much this would have cost, but this would have been so expensive with all of this custom work, all of this glass. Damn.
This stone structure you see was a planter. It had cactus and plants in it, and Scott said he didn't need another planter, but he would love a bar.
There's no 90-degree angles in this house. This house is zero 90-degree angles. To be honest, this is my detailing nightmare, because not only is everything curved, but everything is like tiered. They don't even have a flat plane for the levels. And I understand, I think that's to achieve the organic shape with nature, but from a detailing perspective, the more grades that you add, or the more levels, or the more tiers, the more complicated it gets. It's really pretty though.
Bab Doolittle had an Apple computer,
Still can't get over that this
and
is
it
a
was
house,
clear
though.
plastic, greenish. I made the desk to match the computer. Originally, all the light switch plates in the whole house were made for this old school analog type light switch. When Scott moved in, he wanted to update the lighting system. This is one of the only
Every
remaining one, and
detail.
we're hoping in the future, when we have a
Wow.
little bit more time, to make new switch covers.
How much time to design this? I don't even know. I feel like this would have been a multi-year project. Insane. I want to know how big the team that designed this was too. And in addition to this, you would be working so closely with structural. Like, the structural engineering in this build is freaking crazy. I feel like they'd almost have to be an integrated firm for this to be executed well, because it's really difficult from a project perspective, especially if you're doing something so complicated when your engineers are kind of removed from the design team. Like, this would have had to be structural is brought in from day one, I would assume. Honestly, probably they all were, because I don't even know, like, what would the mechanical in this space be like, and even electrical with so much masonry and hardscape in this design, but you see no conduit or anything.
Doolittles
Crazy.
were kind of introverted people, so they never thought that they would need more than 4 chairs at their dining table.
Okay, so the other thing I'm noticing about this house design is that this house is not designed for entertaining, which I find really interesting, because a lot of times when we review more luxury home design on this channel, these large-scale homes are often designed around entertaining. There was one tour that we watched a couple weeks ago, this like futuristic pod house, which was literally the only reason why it got built was because the billionaire was like, I need a house to entertain people and impress them. The fact that they only have 4 chairs at their dining table is actually crazy to me. So this is very much just like a passion project for the homeowner. Yeah, like a design showcase, totally. I guess that bar space that was outside earlier had a lot more chairs, but I just find that really interesting, because even like the sizing of the spaces, like this house is huge. This living space, for example, like it's quite quaint. It's almost like the effort and the budget went into the intricacies of the design, rather than we're going for quality over quantity here, I guess, in this build. I just wanted to insert a disclaimer here that all of my house tour reaction videos are filmed live on my Twitch channel. So if that's something that's of interest to you, please give me a follow there, and maybe your comment can end up in a video just like this one. Thanks.
Scott was wanting another bedroom, so we decided to build this bed. It's the biggest thing I've ever
Wow.
built as far as a piece of furniture. Originally, Scott was thinking that it would be more of a gathering place than a bedroom, like a bunch of friends could get on here. He likes it so much now that it's used as his primary bedroom.
Who is this person? Who
This-
designs like a mega king bed for people to just gather? I'm so intrigued about who they are. Very, very pretty room design though. It's basically like you're sleeping outside, and it's like so remote. It would be so serene, I'm sure. Wow.
This is the primary bathroom. This is the bronze his and her sink.
Oh,
I
not a
really
fan
let
of
it go on
that.
this one. I didn't hold back.
Oh,
I
this is
couldn't
too sculptural for me.
tell you what the design for this is inspired by. It was more of just a process of drawing and
That's
drawing
so
and drawing
extra.
until I came up with a shape I liked.
Notice how there is no evidence that this home is actually lived in. Like, there is nothing in this bathroom to indicate that this is someone's space to get ready in the morning. Where does it go?
In order to get this,
Or are they just so rich that they only come here sometimes? Okay, I'm editing this video in post. It's officially called the Kellogg Doolittle House. I learned that you can rent this house on Airbnb for a cool $72.97 Canadian a night. There's a 3-night stay minimum, so you're sitting at about $24, $48, $88 to stay at this residence. Insane. Have they showed the kitchen yet? Or is that coming up? Oh, they did show a preview of the kitchen and it was weird and it was curved and it was also small. It's crazy to me. Like, you would think that it's probably just a party house, but it really is not, or doesn't appear to be designed for having a lot of people in it.
this is a primary bedroom. It's, if you see here, this is the lighting
like a loft.
fixture that you saw before. That's where we are. We're on top of that.
Oh, so that is a platform.
The bed is situated to look out the clear story, and it's really beautiful at night to see all the stars.
Okay, I understand why he prefers the other bedroom. I think the other bedroom, this feels, when I first saw this before he said it was a bedroom, I thought that this was just like an office loft.
The wood sat for 6 years in the garage on stickers to dry out. And then I put it together. When these were made, these
Okay, so this house took more than 6 years.
reveals were the thickness of a dime. And you can see that even though these have 11 coats of automotive finish on them, what was the thickness of a dime is now almost 3/8 of an inch.
Oh, it says in the, wait, here. I just noticed, I just want to point this out here. The sensational build was designed by organic architect Kendrick Bangs Kellogg and his protege Jean Bugren in the 1980s, taking over 20 years to complete. Oh, and the magnificent structure appears skeletal with 26 cast concrete pieces fanning out in resemblance of vertebrae. So it is concrete. So they must have cast it and then brought it onto site. But the fact that they had to use a golf cart or like a golf cart sized vehicle to get it up the pathway, freaking crazy.
This is the guest bathroom, and it's one of my favorite rooms in the house. I don't know what I was thinking, but I just went crazy with the marble.
Oh my God.
And I fabricated these sinks and cabinets. I just love the shapes and the volumes.
This is crazy. But note that it's all still, like, it's not exuberant in size. This is a really, like, normal sized bathroom. It's just very beautifully, intricately detailed.
The material for it came from a rock slide. It's an exact match in material and color for the boulders that are in the house. The boulders just flow right through the floor out into the landscape. This house comes as close as anything could be to the feeling you get from like looking at a Mark Rothko painting or listening to John Coltrane.
Wow, this is, I think, one of the craziest home design builds I've ever seen. I want to see plans of this. I want to know everything about it. Like, even, yeah, just like the living room space. Even when they showed the kitchen, I think they showed it briefly at the beginning, and it looked, yeah, here, the kitchen. Like, for how expensive this house is, this is such a normal kitchen, surprisingly. They really didn't make any statements through the actual, like, conventional residential parts. It's all through the actual architecture itself. We worked on a project in my office. It was a heritage building built out of sandstone. I didn't work on the project directly myself, so it was more secondary knowledge about how important the selection of your hardscape is in your build, and how, for example, for this heritage building, the quarry where the sandstone was originally sourced from was now a natural park, so they weren't able to actually obtain any of the original masonry. So they actually traveled around the world. I think they went to 4 or 5 different countries to look at other variations of sandstone to try and find the closest properties to the original heritage build, because it erodes at different rates, it discolors in different ways, and so they really went above and beyond to try and figure out how to get as close of a match as they could. And I wonder when he was getting into that, even with the hardscape from the stone here and talking about sourcing it from a landslide, but it still matches. I'm curious about how far they had to source some of the masonry and the hardscape from, and I wonder to what degree that was considered as well, because this is a new build, and in my firm it was a heritage project. Really interesting to think about.